Welcome everybody, Rick DiClemente with Astrology Unplugged. Good to have you with us again. And tonight's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different kinds of charts. I want to welcome you aboard in case you've not been with us before. This is not a A through Z class. This is a more chit-chat room about different astrological subjects each week. If you don't know how to join us, I know you're watching on YouTube. If you don't know how to join us, go to my website, which is starself.com, and you can see right on there the links to join us any Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time for free. Nothing really in the news astrologically with me, except I do have a, what is it, 30% discount? Hello, John. 30% discount through Christmas if you want to, or 33% if you would like to buy a gift certificate for somebody. You could do that by following my website also. Okay, tonight we're going to talk about, starting off talking about Al Franken, but what, just because it's topical, but what I wanted to bring up tonight is number one, you're just not going to be a major personality if you don't have major connections to Pluto and Neptune and Uranus. What's so funny about the current media and the current state of astrology, they've got it absolutely backward. Most astrologers put all their focus on the sun and the moon and Venus and Mercury retrograde and Mars, the inner planets. The outer planets are the story. The inner planets have their importance, but they're gravely overrated compared to the power of Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, even Saturn. So I'm going to show you some very famous people and show you how you just, you know what I mean, people with pizzazz, people with power, people that have made a dent. That comes from the outer planets, or later signs in the zodiac, plus the outer planets. But if you don't have connectivity to the outer planets, you're just not going to make a big dent in this world, in most cases. Now, I'm not saying you have to, I'm just telling you astrologically how it is. The main issue for tonight that got to me was to talk about what an astrologer does, and what an astrologer really is an archetypal mixer. That's why you have to know Aries at its essence. What's really going on with an Aries? What's really going on with a Scorpio? Not these key words you've heard. You have to understand it down deep, because when you address these planets and signs, you're addressing them through different facets, different ways. And that's why you have to have a holistic sense of a planet or a sign, because sometimes we take the Scorpio and we pull out the passion part. Sometimes we take a Scorpio, we pull out the dedication part. It has many parts to it. It's all one whole. But that's why you'll see me constantly tonight talking about the archetypal sides. Now, if you don't have that archetypal knowledge, and you can't get it right away, you have to just keep studying. And the way you study is you just find whatever method you like to keep studying charts and rulers of houses and aspects and all these different matters, and you'll quickly find, as you do, you'll go off on your own trail. I mean, astrology is just amazing. Almost every person in the world that studies goes off on their own tangent. It's just unbelievable. I've got my tangent, and it's changing, and it always does. And other people have theirs. It's not right or wrong. But the more you know archetypally, and that's why you see that word repeated so many times with the wonderful author Richard Harness, who is an absolute expert on archetypal astrology. He's the author of Passion of the Western Mind and Cosmos and Psyche. So let's get started. I'm going to use this in many different ways. You'll start to see what I mean. We're going to start with Al Franken's chart. And here it is. Let me get it up here. Okay. Now, people wrote to me and they wanted to know what's bringing him down since he resigned today. Well, there are several ways of looking at this, but you notice he's a Gemini and he's got Sun next to Mars, and not only Sun next to Mars, but Mars is really close. It's within 9 minutes. And I have told you before, when you have strong Gemini, when you have any Gemini, it can be enough to make you want to get a little kinky, to make you want to explore areas that are taboo. But it's very, very common that people with even the smallest amount of Gemini can stray from the norm, if you will. Now, that's not enough to do it. It does mean he's highly sexed, having Mars near his Sun. But what really is happening with him, we'll get to in a moment. You notice Pluto sitting at the midheaven, giving him strong Scorpio traits, 1 degree away. You notice Neptune is hiding quietly, strongly at the beginning of the 12th house. There is Scorpio rising. What's the face he always puts on? Happy-go-lucky, the Gemini face. That's the moon in Sag. The Gemini Sun, the moon in Sag. The president has Sun in Gemini, moon in Sag. They've got the same sun, moon, but that doesn't mean very much. There is a T-square here between Uranus and Chiron going over to Jupiter and Aries, but the whole story is really about this right here. When Venus combines with Uranus, okay? When I ask you what does Venus-Uranus means, you have to know what it means. You don't have to be a master's student at it, but you have to have an understanding. And you think the Venus is in Cancer and Uranus is next door, so automatically you got a really strange combination, because the Venus in Cancer is kind of delicate, right? Treat me like a lady, treat me like a genteel. But when you put the Venus next to Uranus, it completely overwhelms the Cancerian part. The Venus is now more like a Venus in Aquarius, which is friendly and meeting people. It can be Cazimi, but don't get confused with Cazimi. That's very overrated. Follow Arroyo. What does Venus-Uranus mean? It means you're flirtatious. The Venus part of you, Uranus can't keep still. It spikes all the time with jolts of energy and jolts of light and jolts of disruption. Venus-Uranus is known as somebody that's really flirtatious, and they get really attracted to somebody real quick, and they turn off just as quick. Turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off. Okay? He's already got Pluto at the midheaven. He's got Mars on his Sun. The Sun is in Gemini. So you got a guy who's very vulnerable to just suddenly launch out, grab somebody, give him a kiss. He's uncontrollable. He loses it. This is deeply in his nature. Now, it doesn't mean he's doing it sexually, but there are strong indications here. Now, when you get to this, you'll really start to see what's happening. So he's already real impulsive with the Sun next to Mars. He's impulsive, and when you have a real strong Pluto, it makes you really compulsive. You got to have it. I got to have it. You ever been around a Scorpio at Christmas time or go shopping with a Scorpio? They'll literally talk like this. Oh, I've got to have that. They will. And that real intense desire to merge with the others, to merge with beauty, to merge with lightness, and to merge with youth is very Scorpionic. So you got a Scorpio rising, you got a moon in Sag, which is known for what? No self-control. Okay, so where's Saturn? Saturn is right here, sneaking up on Chiron. Saturn's at the very end of Sagittarius, and it will go into Capricorn. What's the date today? 12 days from now. Saturn has 12 more days in Sagittarius. Then it's going to hit the Chiron. And the Chiron's very well behaved, but the Chiron has been set up for so many years sitting opposite that wild Venus Uranus. So the Saturn, the Capricorn nature, the Saturn nature of Chiron and Capricorn has been trying to get this Venus Uranus to behave. And this fight goes on, and I'm sure it goes on through many lifetimes. And what happens to this fight? It all gets sent to Jupiter and Aries. Do you think that helps any? No. The Saturn in Virgo doesn't even come into play. This is a very impulsive symbol of just lashing out, and I want it and grab it, and that's what he's known for. It's not so much of like what Cosby was accused of, drugging women, etc., but it's that sudden burst. And now that Saturn is getting close to here, this is what's causing it. It's the Saturn getting close to the Chiron. More importantly, this Chiron is getting additional power from Saturn because Saturn rules Capricorn, and Saturn is people like senators, people that work in office building, people with high places. And now what's happening is this Venus-Uranus, this won't even be exact for a year. But this Saturn is strong enough right now to have it out with that Venus-Uranus. And what else is happening almost exactly right now is Pluto is sitting at 18 right here, square to that Neptune. See? And when you want to get somebody's dirty laundry, you shine lights on their Neptune in the 12th house, because that's where they're hiding their dirty laundry. So we can see clearly, and I'm sure you're smart enough to understand, that he is being an avatar of the moment. He's one of the main characters in this new story of women coming to their rights, women standing up, etc., etc., etc. But mainly what's going on is his Venus-Uranus get nabbed. Why did his Venus-Uranus get nabbed? It didn't get nabbed because Saturn said, oh, it's time to get him. We've been letting him get away with this for so long. Be a good astrologer, think. It didn't get him because Saturn's the planet of karma, and karma caught up with him and all this crap. Saturn is getting him because he wants his Saturn to get it. When Saturn moves in your chart, Saturn thinks about one thing, wherever it is. Is this area of my life working? We can't use the word karma. Karma has so many thousands of misunderstandings. Karma implies you messed up and you got to pay the price. And that supports this whole idea of God sitting on a chair that's judging you. That's not what's happening here. He wants this corrected. Inside, he may not even be aware of it. He wants it corrected. And since he's been unable to, he's sending forth the energy that's making it come back to him. That's why I've been saying all along that the President Trump wants somebody to stop it. He wants to, I think he's got a death wish. He wants somebody to stop him. And more embarrassment, bigger statements. It's just becoming monolithic. He's out of control. And he thinks at the ego level that he wants these things, but he really doesn't. And the inner self is smart. The inner self knows where it wants to go, and there's only one place to go. Now, I don't have to tell you where that is. There's only one place to go. So since he can't seem to get in control of his Saturn, and he's got two signs in him, Gemini, Sag, which are so strong about having no control, he's unconsciously yelling out, speaking out to get help, and getting knocked from on high will really help him. Now, I did not do the 10th harmonic, and this is he is the perfect Franken's the perfect person to look at the 10th harmonic, because that's the harmonic that shows your social status and shows you falling from grace. But I reiterate, the Saturn's inside. He's not been able to whip it up, get it to work. So it's time. The timing is right. The victims will say, oh, this will catch up with you at some time. That's a different story. Inside of us, we want to regain balance. We know where we come from is a perfect, harmonious place, and we want to return there. It's that simple. Now, any questions about Franken? Okay, I'm going to move on. Now, I got a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. When you start looking at your chart as if these planets belong to you, everything changes. That's why in 1978, when I started, and Arroyo made me realize that, I had such an aha moment, it just carried me for many years. These planets are not out there to get us. These planets are in here. Now, I want to share a chart I did this week. I have changed the name down to the initials, and it was really fascinating. Let me show you why. Here's a woman's chart I did yesterday. Okay, now I want you to see here, this is a woman who is a psychic reader. She is very pleasant. She's very rambunctious, kind of like a bull in a china shop. She's really ebullient and really high-strung and very powerful. And notice she's got a sun in Libra, but she's got the moon in Sag. But more importantly, she's got the very powerful Mars all by itself, the head of the bucket pattern. And when you're learning, you will get deceived by looking at Mars in Pisces. But it's not the fact that Mars is in Pisces. That's far secondary. It's Mars by itself. That's what's important. She's very Martian. She's very Aryan. So even the Pisces in her does calm her down somewhat, but these are really at odds with each other. Me, us, me, us, us. But the Mars is so strong because it's the tip of a T-square. Why else is it strong? Because it's in sync with something like a Gemini rising. It's in sync with Uranus in Leo, Pluto in Leo. It's in sync with the moon in Sag. All fiery things. So what it comes down to, you notice that Libra people usually are the last ones looking through a telescope. They're the last ones camping out or going to spiritual meetings. And almost always, if you find a Libra at one of these meetings, it's because they have a strong Neptune. Almost always. You got a T-square to it, a bucket pattern to it, or Neptune at the midheaven, Neptune on the ascendant. And here you see she's got the strong Neptune. Okay, so she's got the strong Neptune, but remember, and I'm reading a book right now called Be in the World, but not of it. No matter how much Neptune's on her, and I know other Libras this way too, she's still going to be obsessed with the main thing Libras are obsessed with, which is being socially okay, being socially acceptable. That's what Libras do. They're social beings. So there's no reason she can't blend the two. Being socially active, being spiritually active, there's no reason she can't. She didn't seem to be too troubled with, to me. I thought she was doing really well compared to the fact that she had two parents that were really Virgoing. Get to work, get it done, get to work. Don't mess around. Get it done, get it done, get it done, get it done. Well, she's got this nagging thing on her back all the time. And I went through all her harmonics and I kept seeing Saturn, Pluto, Virgo, Virgo, Saturn, Pluto. And it was all about get to work, get to work, get it done, get it done. And so what it came down to was this. I don't know why, but as I age and as I do astrology more, and maybe you can use the word evolve, I don't know, I get better clients. And what I mean by that is I get people who are more serious about their own path, not the ones, hey man, give me a reading, huh? What's it, $10? Give me a reading. You know, that'll wear you out. But you got to go through those days. But what did I see in this chart? Neptune sitting right here. The main planet in her chart, not because some book said so, not because some rule said so. That's why you got to be so cautious of what rules you adopt. Just because some book said or some magazine said. The main planet in this chart is Mars, because it's near the midheaven and because it's a bucket pattern, followed by Neptune. Well, here's her main planet. And all her life, she's been watching Neptune go woo, 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 slowly moving. She's in her 60s, right? Neptune's moving, crosses the midheaven, Neptune's sitting right there. Wow. Now do we have a story? So, the Mars that's in her agrees with all the Sag and the Gemini. Go, do it. Go, go, do it. Just dive in. Oh, go do it. And it's a wonderful thing Aries people have. They have this wonderful instinct. But the Mars is in Pisces. And I claim to you that the Mars in Pisces, the Pisces is not able to influence that Mars well enough because Pisces is not bossy. It's not real strong. It's very subtle. But now Neptune's there. So you got Mars in this really gray area. Now we got Neptune coming for the next couple of years. And that's what led her to me. So what's happening is the inner voice is starting to get louder in her. And Mars is me. What about me? What about me? What about me? If you know any Aries, that's your favorite sentence. Neptune is, I don't want to even hear about that. What about us? What can you do for others? What can you do for others? Mutable water, giving love. The zodiac is exquisite. It evolves to mutability at the final stage in love. Giving off love. And speaking of which, we got Valdemar here with a new haircut, it looks like. Welcome aboard, Mr. Waldemar. So what I finally realized with her is you got to keep things simple with people. Don't try to impress them with how good you are. Your job is to send them home with something valuable. Maybe that's the Capricorn in me, something they can use. Your job is to get them closer to God, to help correct their path, whatever you want to call it. So Neptune's all over, but how is she going to hear the whisperings and the silent, quiet voice within when she's so Martian, sad? So I finally gave her the understanding and the image of this, and this is fascinating. That Mars at the top of her chart is like this maniac. He's on the front of the boat, and he's working, and he's mowing, and he's rowing, and he's got to keep up with the parents. He's got to be productive, keep rowing. And I always stop and say, well, how well did that work out for your parents? Not at all. They're miserable. One of them is real sick. But the whole point is, I'm getting a virus protection message. Let me get this fixed up here. Turn on. Thank you, Mercury retrograde. Okay. This is monitoring protection. Okay, so we're okay. So you got this chart that's super active, but why is it super active? To keep up with the parents bothering her, You look through the past life and you see, because I don't know what you say in your mind, but to me, the ultimate being on this planet is someone like the Dalai Lama, who's just so present, so pleasant. Everything flows in and out. He's not numb. He's very smart, but he doesn't react. To me, that's the goal of all of us. And you can't get there if it's, you see? So she was brought to me to allow her and point out that she needs to get aware of this maniac up front that's rowing so crazy. And the maniac that's rowing so crazy is not going away completely. It's always going to be with her, but you can get it to calm down some. And I told her, I said, a lot of times I have readings with Virgo women, and I ask them on purpose to make the dirty dishes stay in the sink while we're having the reading. Did you survive this reading with those dirty dishes screaming at you? I want them to see how much the world is controlling them. So the whole point of the beautiful reading was she was very smart. She understood archetypes well. She's a tarot reader. And I wanted her to get in touch, not try to fix it. Just get in touch with how much that fanatical rower is going to get her nowhere. Except tired and worn out. She thinks it's going to please her parents, which any child would, but it's time for it to go. And that's why the Neptune was going over the Mars. It's time for that wise, quiet, religious, spiritual, knowing part of her to start taking over her actions. Here's the main planet in your chart being passed over by Neptune. Neptune passes are like getting new culverts built between you and the sky. That's what a Neptune pass is like. You get a new connection, a new phone line to God, whatever you want to call it. So she understood it. She has been feeling it. Like anybody with a Neptune pass, she doesn't understand it. I was there to verify it, there to confirm it. I'll talk to her in a couple of months, and I'll be absolutely certain that a couple of months from now, she will stop being so crazy about washing the dishes, stop being so crazy about being so productive, and then Neptune will start to guide her. And then I will push her into the second stage, because you can't push too fast. The second stage is she's got to stop thinking that she can direct her life, because she can't. Mars is all about, I know what I want, and I'm going to go get it. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get it. That's Martian people. They know what they can't understand. People that are indecisive. I know what I want. I'm going to go get it. Well, when Neptune takes over, you start to realize there is no individual mind, that you're starting to merge with the greater mind. And that has to be done in stages, and the wisdom of the astrologer has to come into play. I'm sure with you, Karen, and you working with people's bodies, you work in a certain area, you leave other areas alone. All you different healers, you work on a certain area, you leave other areas alone. That's very important. You don't blast them with too much. It's amazing how my readings almost always end at 70 minutes. Almost always at the 40th minute, almost always takes me 39 minutes to dig around. 40 minutes, I got it. 40 minutes to the hour, I'm explaining it. Then we start to talk the same language. 70 minutes, it just ends itself. Because most people, you just can't keep hitting with all these principles and these high dimensions. It's too much. Unless you're talking to an Aquarian or another astrologer, they can handle it. But I don't chase them away at 75 minutes. Most people can't go past that point. So what I'm trying to point out to you tonight, and the reason that chart's sparked my interest, is you see the archetypal shift. She's so Martian. Well, here comes Neptune. Now I'll tell you what will happen to her. if she were to ignore it and stay worldly and go out and minutes after the phone call, she called me back. She just got a phone call from New York City, the main place where they have all the ball games. I forget, Madison Square Garden. She got a call to go to Madison Square Garden and read for 50 people for some party. I said, well, I'm not shocked at all. But the point is, it's a gradual shift from the thinking I'm Rick to the thinking of I'm Rick that's a bigger part of a bigger picture. And that's why you have to understand what you're doing. And I reiterate, in my opinion, and you can slap me down if you want to, but I'm interested in you shaking your head one way or the other. I really don't want to hear what most people have to say. I don't. I mean, I have respect for people. I learn from people. A lot of people teach me a lot of things, but on the spiritual path, I don't know about you, I want to learn from in here. I want to learn from in here. I've read the books. They're interesting. They're fascinating. I don't want a guru. I want to learn from in here. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I think you can trust that kind of teacher better. And I think it ebbs and flows. I think it's sometimes you need to go out and get a teacher and come back, go in your cave, and it ebbs and flows. But I think you got a good understanding of how the archetype works in that one person. And that you cannot read for that unless you understand the Neptune, understand the Pisces, understand the Mars. But that's primarily what was going on in her chart. She understood it. She felt confirmed. She felt good, and I feel happy. Did that make sense to you? Okay, good. I got a couple. This is the no, and this is the yes. Thank you. And with Waldemar, he uses his thumbs. Or in case of things he sends to you, he uses his nose. I'm talking about the thing you sent me today. Don't give me that look. He uses his nose, believe me. All right. Now I want to go on to the next one. I want to show you Lorena McKenna. Have you ever heard of a singer named Lorena McKenna, who is this fabulous, unbelievable singer out of central Canada? She sings a lot of Celtic music. She's Aquarian, so she's good into research, and she's really good about keeping alive the lineage of the Celts, and she's really into that. And if you've never listened to her, go listen to her on YouTube, and you'll be buying all her CDs. So she's just astounding. Here's her chart, and I'm going to show you this for a reason here. Hold on. Huh, where'd she go? Okay, she's got this magnetic energy. She's a harp player. She plays the accordion. She's this tremendous voice, tremendous singer. But what I'm trying to show you in this chart is when you see people like this, or Shakespeare, or Lincoln, or the really powerful personalities, they're going to have connections with the outer planets. That's where the power is. Pluto, Uranus, Neptune. She's an Aquarian. The sun is right opposite Pluto, 29 degrees, almost exact. This astrologically is somebody with tremendous power, or somebody that can't stand anything and is just overpowered by everything around them. But this is tremendous power. Then you've got a 3 degrees Uranus opposite Mercury, which is in Aquarius. So you get this incredibly fast mind and brilliant, inventive, and it makes a T-square to Mars. And the Mars is really well off here. Why? Because the Mars is grounded in Taurus. Grounded. If that Mars were in Aries or in Sag or in Gemini, she might be walking around like a sprinkler system. But that Mars is strong. And boy, when you watch her sing, she can be light as an angel and just come up, be like a cannon. She has so much depth and range. So we see the Mars is the main planet in this chart. Very, very powerful. And that's what coaches her and prods her to do much research in the ninth house, research on the Celts' history, etc. Here we see another T-square to Neptune. And she's just angelic when she sings, just angelic. The crowd doesn't make a sound. But the point is, you see the connection to the outer planets, the Sun to Pluto, Neptune to Mars, Uranus right into Mercury, right at the basis of a T-square. Now, when you see people who don't have these connections to the outer planets, they're just more normal. They're more everyday-ish. They don't feel inspired. When you see people like this, these are the big wave people. They're either riding that big wave, woo-hoo, or the big wave is beating them up real bad. So look at your chart and those that you're reading and pay special attention to the type of connection there is to Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. And the one that gets always underrated is Saturn. If Saturn is not heavily involved, you're just not going to keep it together. You don't have the discipline. You don't have a way of corralling things and keeping things formed and congealing. That's the Saturn rings. So we go back and we take a look at her Saturn placement. What do we find? Saturn is not only right near the nadir, Saturn is 13 and the ascendant is 11. So Saturn squares that ascendant. Saturn squares that descendant. It did bring tragedy into her life, there's no doubt, which I won't get into now. She lost her fiance through an accident. But that Saturn keeps a grip on the ascendant and the descendant. So she's got these phenomenal energies, these outer energies of Uranus, of Pluto right to the sun, of Neptune. But she's able to corral them, work with them, make them manifest because of Saturn. When you watch her band, and her band is astounding, playing these old medieval instruments, you can see she doesn't want the limelight. She's perfectly willing to step in the background and let her other virtuoso musicians go out front. The woman is astounding. Let's keep talking about how important those outer planets are. I'm going to go right to Lady Di, which I thought was interesting. I was studying her today, Lady Diana. Lady Diana Spencer. I've written about her in the book, and I really think that Lady Diana was the people's princess because of a couple things. I wrote about her in the chapter on understanding cancers and their purity and their childlike nature. People loved her for so many reasons. Yes, she was beautiful, but she was vulnerable. And people are tired of looking at other people who are invulnerable. They're all encased in steel, and their heart has steel around it. That's why people love Marilyn Monroe and why they love Lady Di, because they had a sense of vulnerability. And people want their innocence. Why do you think a Scorpio next to be king married her? They want that beauty and innocence. She became the people's princess, which is so fairyland, right? She became the people's princess because she was the people's innocence. and people were sick of this hardcore world, and they saw this delicate flower, and they wanted her to be treated lightly, to be treated well. Her wedding, what the biggest wedding in the history of the planet? And there you see her next to this towering, staunch Scorpio Charles, and on the other side, the queen that won't die, the Taurus. The archetypal mixture was astounding. Now, when you get somebody that has that type of astounding appeal, like Elvis Presley, like Marilyn Monroe, they have to have the magnetism from the outer planets. You're not going to get it from Venus. You're not going to get it from Mars. I don't care what house these planets rule. Now look at her. She's got Pluto right next to Mars, okay, which Ali had. You ever want to get Ali in the corner? I don't think so. It was in Virgo. And since it was in Virgo, that's why she wanted to go out through Africa and help people and put in motion all these different programs to help the children, which is so Cancerian. And her moon was in Aquarius. The moon is so important to Cancers. It's their ruler. It's really like their second sun sign. So that moon in Aquarius gave her the ability to be a little bit detached from her feelings and not too vulnerable, which Cancers can do. You see this beautiful grand trine, Neptune to Chiron and Pisces, to the Sun and Mercury. How beautiful is that? The Sun in Cancer to Neptune to Chiron and Pisces. So she was angel-like, even though she had some naughty chapters in her life, yeah. But do you see how the powerful planets work? What you got? Pluto's right on Mars. Pluto's exactly opposite Chiron. Neptune, all by itself out here at the head of the 10th house, riding that grand trine. Uranus, right opposite her moon in Aquarius. This is where the power comes from. I hope this encourages you to look at your own charts and the charts in your files and really zoom in closely on the outer planet. I'm going to turn Karen on because Karen just mumbled something. What was that, dear?
I said that is exactly what I'm doing right now.
Good. That's exactly what you should do. Okay. Let's talk about this for a moment. Tonight's kind of free form. When your Pluto is plugged in, it gives you passion. That can lead to destruction, like Kim Jong-un, who has Putin has Pluto at the top of his chart. It makes you want to dominate, or it can be used wisely in a lot of cases, such as Einstein's chart, which is coming up. When the Neptune is strong, it makes you loving. It makes you lovable. It makes you want to open your arms to the world. It's the planet that makes you Christ-like. Or it makes you lost, because you don't want to deal with reality. But it opens the channels to God. Substitute any 20 words you want for God. That's up to you. Uranus. That's the planet that gets you the pizzazz, the Jimi Hendrix, the Bob Dylan, the just stuff that comes out of nowhere, and you lay it down and you just can't believe what you just heard. Like in the 60s, and they came out with, the Beatles came out with Revolver. I remember sitting around like, what the hell was that? What was that? Just astounded at the novelty of that album. And today it's voted the #1 Beatle album of all time. The inventiveness, the brilliance of it. Very quick, very fast. That's what the outer planets do. Let's take a look at some other folks. Let's take a look at Hendrix. Fascinating charts. If I could click on the right buttons, I'll get it. Jimi Hendrix. I played guitar for a long time, and I have no idea how he could put his hand on the strings and make it sound like that. That was not, they only had the electronics back then for the fuzz box and the like the echo, tremolo. He was doing most all that with his fingertips. Just this incredible sound. It was because he lived there. He was laying on you the sound of the world in which he lived. That's why it was awesome. Not because he had the technique. All these other guitarists tried to copy him and they could play the same notes, but didn't have the same feeling. Because he was there. Now, in his case, he was so attached to big planets, he had so little control of it that he burned out. He gave us a fireworks show, and he burned out. Page 27. Look at Neptune, top of the chart. Sun and Sag, next to Venus. This guy, all he ever did was play his guitar. And all the biographies you read about him, that's all he did. He didn't want to talk. He played his guitar. He had a moon in Cancer. He was very sensitive. Here's the Sun, Venus, right opposite Saturn, but also the Mercury's right opposite Uranus. See, the flashes of brilliance of Uranus being in Gemini, just these new novel things, just pouring into his mind. He didn't even know what it was. It would come from Uranus right through his body, out his fingertips. That's what you felt when you listened to him. The reason you got high listening to him is because he gave you the ability, the opportunity to be plugged into these pure archetypes. I went to a party in 1968. And this girl came up to me, the Hendrix was playing. She said, "Go over there and put your ear next to the speaker." And I said, "Why?" I found out why. Because it was up real loud and I was in a whole new world because I was listening to Diana Ross, the Beach Boys. I found out, he just blew me away because he was just so powerful. He wasn't powerful because he was playing fast. He wasn't powerful because he was like in Ozzy Osbourne's Black Sabbath and he's playing loud. He was powerful because he was plugged in and able to be a channel for these energies. If you ever listen to articles by him, read articles by him, listen to him talk, he's like, he just made no sense most of the time he's talking. He couldn't even tell you why. He was just so excited himself. He was just in tune, in touch, and it was just pouring out of him. Then the Saturn return went around. He came near age 27. He fired his abusive manager who was taking advantage of him, and then he died. So many people die right when they're ending chapter 1 and they're ready to go out on a new chapter. It's unbelievable. They're ready to start a new life and they get murdered. They die from something. They have an overdose. It's unbelievable how many times that happens. And it happens because they don't feel that they deserve it. They get loose from their chains. And it's so mind-blowing to the soul that deep in the soul, they don't feel that they deserve it, and they call death to them. That's what I have learned. Anyhow, Bob Dylan. Talk about an incredible chart. What do you have? You have a guy here that's just like this endless jukebox. The stuff just pours out of him. And look at this. Look at this. Sun in Gemini, Venus in Gemini, Mercury in Gemini. And this is why he keeps changing. He's got so many hundreds of styles. He's the trickster. You ever see an interview? He's not going to give you a straight answer about anything. That's the trickster you see in Trump. It's the same Mercury energy. Look at the Neptune, how powerful. Squaring the ascendant. Say what you want. This man is a very spiritual man, but he's not going to give it to you straight. He's got the trickster in him. And that's what Geminis do. They play with the trickster. And the reason they won't give you anything straight, Mr. Trump, is because they don't want to be nailed down. Because the reason they don't want to be nailed down is the image of the pin through the butterfly into the cork board. Geminis and Aquarians, death is being pinned down for two different reasons. Being pinned down. Then they can't play. That's why it's death. They can't play. Geminis want to play. They want to go explore. Let's go look. That's why the president doesn't care about this and that and this and that. It's too serious. He doesn't care. He wants to play. He's playing Twitter games. Let's go back to Dylan. The incredible power of Neptune here, the godlike power of Neptune. And I can guarantee you, although I don't have the dates, but I can guarantee you that Neptune hit in the late 70s when he went into his Jesus years. And he went through several albums of being saved by Jesus. Look at the Jupiter-Uranus, 3 degrees apart, grounded in Taurus. Look at the Sag rising. The moon is in Taurus. Talk about grounded. The moon is next to Saturn, and they're both in Taurus. So this is one of the fabulous parts of this chart. He's very, very grounded, but yet he's flying all over the place, and playing with all these ideas, and he's the ultimate chameleon. Pluto's extremely strong at the beginning of the 8th house. In the midst of this group and that group, you got Pluto, you got Neptune, you got Uranus. Again, same thing. Now let me go to some others that are fascinating. Van Morrison. Look at this incredible singer, this unbelievable singer. Now he had the 1945 Jupiter, Chiron, Neptune, the same as the president has, same as Stephen Stills has, and they all use it differently. This, for him, is this deeply spiritual sound that he comes up with, and this man's a Virgo. Virgos are not known for moving you deeply with soul singing. This is 4 degrees maximum. Jupiter, Neptune, Chiron. You have the beauty of this spiritual earnestness, and right in the middle, this Chiron that wants to bring it to the people. And the Virgo's right there, the technician right in the middle of it. You got the Saturn in Cancer rising, so he's really, really in touch with his feelings. This very mysterious 12th house, this very mysterious connection he has to the heavens with Uranus, Moon, and Mars. You find somebody that knocks your socks off and go look at their chart, and you'll see the connection to the outer planets. Patsy Cline, this average-looking country singer. Where are you, Patsy? Okay. This average-looking country singer blew you away with her power and her purity. One of the voices that transcends time in country music. Look at the Pluto, right between Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars, 8 degrees apart, are the planets of magnetism, charisma. Pluto is right in the middle of it. All three opposite Saturn, which is a lot of stress here. What did she do with that stress? She didn't even know it. She let it all go through Uranus and Aries. And Uranus and Aries is up here all by itself. Uranus and Aries is just very magnetic and very direct and very pure. A sun in Virgo? Who in the world would ever think that a sun in Virgo and a moon in Capricorn could produce such songs? First of all, she's got the sun right next to Jupiter, Neptune. Here we go again, the Jupiter, Neptune, the two planets of heavenly interest, heavenly connection, heavenly heart, feeding right into her sun, all in the fourth house, the emotional house. This is why these people blow you away. It's their connection to the big stuff. Shakespeare. Oh my God. This floored me so much, I think I looked at this chart for a whole day once. Pluto right on the midheaven. This is a humble Taurus. Tauruses are prolific, they get a lot done, but they don't write a bunch of poems. They don't write a bunch of long stories usually. But this guy does, because why? He's got the moon in Libra, opposite Mercury. He's got this, here's the main reason. He's got this Uranus at 6 or 7, opposite this Venus, Neptune, which is so open and so romantic, and writing it down, expressing it, communicating it in Gemini, and Uranus just keeps firing it, and just so novel and innovative, and the T-square goes up to the Pluto. So he was very much archetypal, an avatar of, they said that, I watched a documentary, it said 10% of the English language was coined by him. 10%. He was just a word machine. Fascinating. Look at the connections again. And I'm not going to say it's got to be connected to all three, but I'm learning that it's got to be connected to all three. Pluto, right at the top. Neptune, Uranus, heavily involved. Look, all three are directly linked. All three are definitely linked together. And that's why he just kept producing and producing and producing. Just fascinating. We'll take a break here in a minute. Let's take a look at Da Vinci. Rated by computers to have the highest IQ in history, about 220. An IQ of 220. You don't get an IQ like that unless you've got big time, massive planets feeding your intelligence. Neptune, right on the midheaven. Again, a Taurus. Pluto, squaring the sun. If you don't know a lot about Tauruses, Tauruses love the earth. They love to dig in the earth. They love to do these things. And Da Vinci didn't want to be with people. He was always outside digging in the mud and trying glues and trying paints and trying solvents. And he was fascinated with coming up with different kinds of egg tempera and different kinds of paints and how they would dry. And he was a marvelous student. And he learned from his craftsmen through the guilds. In Italy and then in France. And he was fascinated with stuff. He was fascinated. At the end of his life, he was working on people's sewers. He was working on sewer systems. He was just fascinated with materials and stuff and real grounded. And you saw how he drew. phenomenal and was even better as a sculptor. But that comes from the sun in Taurus being elemental in the earth sign, but other things pull it out, such as Pluto. You got a 1 degree square from Pluto right to the sun, half a degree. That's where it comes from. That's why you cannot listen too much about sun sign astrology. This man was Scorpionic and Piscean. His Saturn was extremely strong, being near the midheaven. That leaves us with Uranus. And Uranus is here trine to his moon. There's a grand trine here, Mars and Chiron and Saturn. And I think that Mars, Saturn, and Chiron being the ruler of Virgos, in my opinion, if you look at Chiron, Saturn, and Mars, I think that's why he was so prolific. Just kept producing, kept producing, kept producing. So I think I will stop here. Matter of fact, I did have one more chart. Yeah, let me finish the other one because I think it's fascinating. Let's look at Einstein. And I did get through all these charts. I'm amazed. Okay, Einstein is so amazing because he had the ability to go out there and conceive of these things. But unlike most Pisces, he was able to deliver. What does the chart show you? A great big bucket pattern to Uranus and Virgo in the house of the mind. This is the mental house. This describes his mind. Well, Uranus and Virgo is kind of conflicting because Uranus is chaotic and inventive and Virgo is down to earth. So these two mix together and they are really energized by the opposition to Jupiter. This is really kind of wild mind philosophy, mind and philosophy, mind in school, mind in colleges, mind in education. And it all T-squares to Pluto in Taurus. And up here, Chiron and Neptune in Taurus. So these Aries planets kept him going. The Taurus planets kept him down. Kept going, bring it back to Earth. Go out and explore, bring it back to Earth. But the main thing, without a doubt, and he told you himself, the main thing about his power was his Pisces intuition. That's what he said. He said, your imagination is worth much more than your intelligence. Intuit. Did you know, sidelight, then we'll get off of this, but again, you see the same theme. Did you know that when he worked on the Manhattan Project and they were about to let the first atomic weapon, I think it was blown up at the Bikini Islands, he was not sure. He was a phenomenal mathematician, but he was not sure it had an end to it. And he told President Truman that you might launch this bomb and it may not stop. That it may go through the entire universe. He didn't think so. And luckily, it didn't. But how'd you like to be the president with that button? So anyhow, what I did tonight is I tried to show you a lot of intriguing people who have powerful connections to outer planets. And the next thing I want to talk about before I turn it over is I want you to understand when these big planets go over you, they oppose your planet, they enter a new house, such as Saturn is leaving, Sagittarius is about to enter Capricorn in 12 days. When these planets go over you, it is a mistake to think that, oh, it's here to kick my butt. When Saturn hits you, yes, you will seem older. You will grow in age. You will ache. You will get more responsibility. These planets have side effects, yes. But when Saturn goes over you, you want to make your life work. That one woman I showed you, RJ, and I was reading for her yesterday in New York. Saturn was sitting on her 7th house. And the bad astrologers will tell you, oh, she's going to want to get married. Oh, she's going to get divorced. 7th house of marriage. That's not what it is. Remember, Neptune's up top of her chart. Neptune is going over her Mars. So as she's gaining spiritual connection and as she's becoming more of a therapist that's intuitive, her social role is changing. Saturn in the 7th. Your social role is changing. So all the reason I bring this up is all these planets are these parts of you that you're used to saying, well, someday. Well, I'm getting there. Well, I can feel this thing coming. That's what they are. There are these parts of you that are coming to the top, coming to the surface. Some people can have it come to the surface easily. Some people, it's harder. And that's what you do with an astrologer. You map it out. You sense when it's going to peak. You sense what the energy is like. You use your words. Astrologer uses their words. And at the end, you hopefully merge in the meaning. Anyhow, we're going to wrap this up for the YouTube folks, and we'll have a discussion that they may not be interested. I don't know. But we'll say good night from the Unpluggers to the YouTubers, and thank you for being with us.